So one day I made this really cool orchestra song, just for fun, you know, and then I sent it to my friend because I felt proud of it, and he said, "Is this the opening to your castle game?" And I was like, that would be so cool. So that's what I'm here to do today. Now normally I would just hit up one of my animator friends and throw all the work onto them unpaid because I'm an indie developer. Unfortunately, I don't have friends like that, but I am kind of an artist, so why not just make it myself? I know how to art, I know how to edit, and I kind of know how to animate. Little did I know this was gonna be way harder than I thought it would be. So one little thing about my game is that it's all pixel art, meaning this intro is going to be all pixel art, which is not an easy thing to do. If you know, you know. Details are small, but pixels are big, meaning I would have to do lots of fun perspective stuff with barely any room to make the details that give it the illusion of perspective. Another thing about pixel art is it can't really be smooth FPS wise unless you make the sprites separately and animate them differently. This does come with the side effect of annoying people who like consistent pixel sizes, but really no one cares about them to be. While thinking about how I wanted the intro to go, I realized that the music I wanted to play was around a minute long, but I can't make a super long opening cutscene like that, so I cut out some of the song and shortened it to only 35 seconds, which means I still have to animate 35 seconds of whatever nonsense I have going on. Since everything is separate, I started making all the backgrounds. I had to make these really long backgrounds since I wanted it to look cool and have the camera move around, and I really wanted to treat it like a 3D space, which also means I had to draw all the different angles I wanted to do. Massive shout out to Bayside by Bayside, that album honestly carried me through this process. I made this first background, which is a recreation of the main hangout room from the game that already existed. My idea was to transition through the window into the outside world, where there would be this cool cliffside and have some characters hanging out on it. The window was a very tedious process as I had to rotate over and over, which took a very long time. After I made this first background, I did some video editing and added the zoom in and a little flash to transition into the next scene, giving birth to this absolute peak. I decided to use the character models I already had in the game for the scene since they already looked good and were what I needed. Next, I put them in the scene because, obviously. That's when I realized this space was small and the characters would be pretty packed. I made the character group ups lore accurate and then set up the sprites and realized that I would need to change some of the sprites to better fit the scene since some people just straight up didn't have feet. I started on the king and I accidentally gave him massive clown feet, but I eventually gave him the proper drip. Michael's shoes were also hard since I couldn't quite tell the feet size I wanted, but I eventually got it down. The scene was still kind of weird and unsettling since everyone was staring into the depths of your soul, so I changed that too. Now it looks much better and extremely cinematic. The rotating the window into the zoom part was easily going to be the hardest part of that since I had to move the characters around in a way that doesn't look weirder than it already is when I rotate it. I finished the first two rotations when I realized that it looks pretty good and I didn't need to do anything with the third or fourth one since the camera was zoomed in enough that they wouldn't even be in frame. I made the camera pan around the room before the zoom in, and the first bit was pretty much done for now because looking back this looked terrible. Now I needed to make another background. Luckily I wouldn't need to rotate this one and it was theoretically much simpler. Just a cool sunset over the cliff that I mentioned earlier, not too difficult to do, just needed to do a lot of blending. Luckily, I got it to a nice state. I added it to the scene and at first I had it fade to white and then zoom in, but I decided it would be way cooler if it was like more unnoticeable and it zoomed out from the sunset. Now I had to make the sprites for the sunset, which I was very excited to do since I know I got to make some really pretty shading. I also picked out a very specific set of characters here and you'll see why in the next few levels. Just a reminder that this game, Connobro Castle, is completely free on itch.io, all links are in the description. I made all the sprites, which was just turning people around and then adding a super hard shadow on this back, which would give the effect that they're standing in front of a giant light. I added them all in and I'm gonna be honest, it went really hard. I added the cinematic zoom out and then the title coming down from above and below, and then a little flashbang in time with the music and added a little credit text. But now I had a major problem. The beginning looks super boring compared to the end, so I really needed something to spice it up. I had the idea of adding more audio to the first part as if you're listening in on the conversations, but I really wanted something that would spice it up visually rather than audibly. I added a light camera shake, but other than that, I couldn't really find any effects, so I was hoping I could just record some good audio. While looking around for visual effects though, I did find a glow, which I decided to slap onto the sun and also got these cool light rays. I showed my progress to the same friend from earlier for some feedback and he didn't really have much to say on it. Another issue I realized is that when the first bit of the cutscene is played on a larger scale / screen, the intro is super blurry, so I needed to make it not super blurry. I decided to just redo the entire first sequence and I had an idea on how to give it more motion. Instead of everyone already being there, they would pop in a way that is of course lore accurate while the camera zooms around and introduces them. I also added some text which contains other small things and references, but they're mostly secrets for now. With the whole thing reanimated, I was finally finished, and here's the final result. Now obviously I know this isn't perfect, and it probably would have turned out better if I animated it in my game engine since that actually has a world space, but I didn't want to since it would have been a lot more boring, and I think I learned a lot more stuff this way. At the end of the day, I'm really happy with the result, and it was a fun use of my time. You can get this game free on itch.io. It's called Connobro Castle. You won't see this cutscene yet since the update isn't out and probably won't be for a while, but it's a deck building turn-based strategy game, what a mouthful, where you have to defend the castle from hordes of enemies. I can already see my audience retention tanking, but if you're still here, subscribe to the channel and join the Discord for more updates on this game and other projects. Thank you for watching all the way through, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.